Welcome back, everyone. This is the DomainSherpa Review After Show, where we discuss anything on the minds of our panel. The portfolios, news in the industry, what stocks Rick is buying, what deals we've done, anything you want. So I want to start with a few questions from the audience. Posted on last week's show, I believe, a user named Reem asked, I am new to buying and selling domains. I have a number of domain names that I just bought. I didn't use them and I want to sell them. I'm thinking of creating a blog to feature each domain name and give hints about which business it can best suit. Will people be interested in buying a domain name that was exposed to the audience before? What advice do you have on that? So I guess two questions for the audience. I'm going to open it up to whoever wants to. Is it a good idea to buy a domain name and then put a landing page, a website up to describe what people can do with that domain name? And two, is there any negative results that could happen from putting up a website on that domain name? Who wants to open up with that question, that answer?
Well, I learned last week
watching
the Traffic After Show from a guy named Adam Dicker that the best thing you can do with a domain name is put up a category-defining website as soon as possible. It's not going to hurt you on the resale value, and it's only going to add to your price. So that was my big takeaway. I wrote it on the top of my board. Thank you, Adam, for that. That crystallized the fact that, yeah, there may be some off-the-wall cases where, oh, that changed my vision of the name because you did this. But I really took Adam's comment that, build something on it, and it's going to help you get more. So I would say, yes, build something on it.
Well, I don't think that was the question, though, right? I think the question was, should he put up sort of a page explaining what the domain could be used for in hopes of reselling the name? So I would say no to that. I mean, I think people will use, if they like the name, they know why they like it. I don't think you need to try to explain it. It should either be mean something, be self-explanatory, or somebody needs to somebody knows the name and wants to use it, and it's brandable, means something to them. And it could work against you certainly in the negotiation if you're saying it's a great name for mortgages and banking and business, and it's $5,000, and the guy calls you up and says, well, I don't want to use it for any of that stuff. I just want to use it because my pet's name is that name, and it's only worth $500 to me. So what do you think? So I think it can work against you, and it might come into play obviously if there's a trademark issue, and if you start putting things on the page that relate to trademark, that would be trouble.
All right, good point, Adam. So you did bring up last week that you like to put up websites, and I believe I countered saying that whenever I go to a domain name that I'd like to acquire, me personally, that I'd like to acquire, and I see a website up, I'm actually less liable to make a offer on it because it seems like they've put some time and effort into it and they may not be interested in selling it. But what would you say to this person, Reem, who posted the comment? Do you agree that he should put up a website related to the domain name or an offer page, or just leave it parked?
Do we know what the domain is, or
we don't know any of the domains? He said he just registered them, so I'm thinking if he hand registered them, unless it's a burgeoning industry that we've talked about in the past where you're the first person to register a single or double word or maybe even 3 words that are brand new for a blossoming industry, that maybe they don't have the highest value because nobody else has registered them yet.
So 2 points. Without knowing the domain name, it's very hard to tell what it is. I mean, it could be a trademark, it could be anything, and he's got to obviously stay away from the trademark. And to your point, I think the first thing you actually think of when you go to a domain name that you want and it's actually developed is, oh crap, this is going to be expensive if I really want it. I mean, that's the first thing that a domain investor, I mean, if I go to a landing page, I can see that I'm probably going to have a decent shot at it, but if it's a developed site, and there are quite a few that I'm interested in, I'm going to see that I'm going to have to pay more for it. It's not going to discourage me, because if I have a really good idea and I really want it, I'm going to go after it, but you're definitely going to pay more, and I think that's what you want people to think. I mean, otherwise you're going to get, well, you're not using it, can I get it for $20? So I don't think it's bad to have a site up there in general. As long as you stay from the trademark, I wouldn't post the benefits of owning a site and what you could do with it, but I would definitely put a site up there and put a for sale sign, a for sale button up at the top if you want.
All right. Rick, on your domain names, do you are they landing pages? Are they parked pages mostly?
Well, they're mostly park pages, and I don't have a for sale sign on any domain I own anywhere on the internet or on any third parties, and I have a banner on the top, a one-line banner. It says, "This great domain may be available for lease or joint venture. Click here," and that's it.
All right. And you'd rather lease or partner with somebody than sell them, and if they're interested in buying it, they're going to contact you anyways.
Absolutely. And but my price is high enough where the lease becomes more attractive.
All right. Reem had a follow-up question. These names have not been used before, so how can I appraise them? Anybody want to take that? Paige,
Yeah. Okay. Go
Adam?
ahead.
Go ahead.
Basically, you can use something similar to Rosener's equation and see if they have any exact matches, and if they do, then you can apply the equation, multiply it by 12, I mean the usual stuff, multiply it by the CPC, and if it's a .com, you can go by that. You'll know the value, a rough estimate by that, so I mean, it's not a bad way to go.
Yeah. Paige?
Well, on one hand, he's got $8 invested in each name. So you say to yourself, I got 361 days left before I got to renew it again. If your time's more important than your money, you go one way. But if your money's more, if it's free to develop, you got to tell yourself, I got less than a year to sell this name. So anything I can do to help myself do that is great. But then you have to ask yourself, is the name really got a base of foundation of value that you want to put that much effort on top of it? And if you're going to build something, is the name really worth it? Or should you go get another name? And if you say, I'm going to spend 2 hours a week for the next 51 weeks working on this site and this name, you don't necessarily want to do that with something that can't support the value, that you wouldn't be adding incrementally to make a $1,000 name a $10,000 name or something. So on one hand, you can say, well, I want to try to get my $8 back before I have to renew them. But if you're going to put in a bunch of work, you really got to be honest and say, you know what, I may just want to chalk this up to a learning mistake. I shouldn't have registered the name and let it go. And if you are going to put that much work into building out a name and promoting it and trying to if the name was available, it means people probably weren't already coming to it and knocking down its door. So you can put a bunch of content up, and then you're going to have no one coming to your content. So you have to go outside of your website to try to get people to come, either advertising or social media or something like that. So you got to ask yourself, were the names really worth putting that much effort behind?
Yeah. Good point. All right. We had a couple of follow-on posts from the educational-related domain names that we reviewed a couple of weeks ago. Pat posted, no Sherpa commented on degreerequired.com. Does that make it a drop in your mind? Who wants to comment about that? Degreerequired.com. If you owned it, would you drop it?
Mike, is it require or required?
I believe it's required. DEGREE required, ED at the end, .com.
Well, it's not a bad name, but it also seems to have a negative connotation because I don't know who would use it. I mean, a hiring company could put it up and say degree required, but it may distract and take some people away. It could be an after grad program or something. I don't know what you could use it. It's almost too negative. And it's not really negative, but people infer that you need a degree all the time, but to put it out there and build a site. Or you could do it, I guess, as an education site where it could say if you're applying for a job where you need a degree required, then you could go ahead and use this for education. I can't find a really good use for that name.
Yeah. Anybody else? Any thoughts on degreerequired.com?
I think it's okay. I mean, I would say it's not worth renewing for $8, but it's not something that you're going to sell for tens of thousands of dollars down the line. So I guess it depends on what somebody's outlooks and goals are for the news.
Yeah, I'd say if you had it at a buy it now for 10 months at say $9.99 and you didn't sell it or get an offer on it, then I wouldn't renew it. And I would encourage, and try to have better names. If it's the best name in your portfolio and you paid $100 for it, then you owe it to yourself to try to at least monetize it somehow. And I would say it's with the education. You're trying to paint a picture of you couldn't get a job because it needed a degree. You need a degree, so go to and then advertise for online education.
Yeah. So you'd go at $9.99. You wouldn't, if it didn't sell in 10 months, let's say, you wouldn't just reduce it to $200 or put a best offer on DN Forum in the sales channel and try and just move it out, recoup your losses, and be done with it?
I don't think we have an efficient enough market where I think I either have a buyer or I don't have a buyer, and at $9.99 you should at least get an offer if the guy only wants to pay $200. But so that's what I think.
I don't think you should sell it. I think you should. It's good enough to keep in your portfolio and spend a couple renewals on and see.
Okay. All right, last one. John Harrison asked a similar question. Can I ask the Sherpas to comment specifically on my name, retrain.co? One to drop or keep to speculate with? Retrain.
I think the irony here is very good. Because it's a .co and it's retrained, so it would be a good time to retrain him to buy .coms.
I mean, you're better off if you retrain me, .me, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, good example. So using the extension to support the domain, so people coming back from military or whatever need to change industries, retrain.me would be a better brand than...
No, that wasn't me. I want to tell the guy he should build an empire on this domain name, okay? I want to tell him this is where he should spend every waking day for the rest of his life on this domain because I own retrain.com.
I think the old Rick is back.
All right, I'm going to find out who has fuckyou.com, Rick, because you own fuckyou.co.
National A1. National A1, I think, has fuckyou.com.
They didn't repossess that one?
I don't think so.
All right, let's talk about domain tainting. So in the real estate world, if a house comes up on the market and it's priced, say, $100,000 over what anybody thinks the house is worth based on the comps that are in the market, over the past couple of years, then the realtors will probably come out to it during the open house. They'll probably show it for the first month or 2 months. But as the months stretch on, nobody wants to go look at it anymore. And the price can even drop over and over again or be improved. And a lot of those realtors just feel like, I've looked at it, nobody liked it, I'm not going to go back there again. It's called tainting in the real estate profession. Does domain name tainting actually happen?
Yes.
I think when you get too many people trying to hustle your domain name, you devalue it.
So if you have a domain name for sale and you try and get multiple marketplaces or multiple brokers to sell it for you, Rick, are you saying that devalues it?
Sure. You want to be exclusive. I mean, if I see a domain that's in 10 different places, I'm looking at desperation, and usually 10 different places have 10 different prices.
But that's with the resale market with our guys. I mean, with brokers, with domainers. It's if we get 10 emails of spam for Ferris wheels, then Ferris wheels all of a sudden becomes a pain in the ass, and we don't want to see anything to do with it. Now, it's not Ferris wheels. Let's be clear about that one. But
yeah.
Any domain name that you get spammed over and over again, you're going to remember it. It's not going to be in a positive light.
Well, so
I think if it's offered to domainers at a retail price over and over again, you do stop looking at it.
Yeah.
So much so that when you do go to a wholesale price, you may miss the boat the first time, miss the boat the second time, and someone's finally going to go, wait, they've lowered it down to where? Okay, I want it now, because everyone else just kept seeing it and still had that perception of. So I mean, if you take a name, let's say you bought a name for $4,000 and you put it out there at 100, then you put it out at 97, then you put it out at 93. Yeah, after a while, people aren't going to look at it. Then you put it out at 6, and people still equate it with overpriced. You know what I mean? But it's come all the way down, so it can work, situationally against for you.
And it could also hurt you when they start to aim the same name. I don't know, like frozen sushi, and they send it to a bunch of end-user companies, and they get it over and over again. By the time the third one comes around, they all go to the spam bin.
Yeah. Well,
and you may have lost a good lead at the right price.
Right.
I mean, plus a lot of the bloggers, including myself, will report on auction results and, wherever the auctions are, so if you go to, like, the domains.com, which I just did, to see what I had for this name, just type in, like, the domain in the search box, you'll see stories that included that name in the past. So I can see it was, up at a live domain traffic auction in Silicon Valley, which was a long time ago, 2009. And it was, had a reserve price of $1,000 to $5,000. And there's a few more stories on it, but I haven't time to go through them all. So, I mean, you can find buyers, if they're somewhat educated, they can go find these stories. Even, of course, all the blog posts get indexed in Google too. So, they can just probably Google it and see what name has either been up for sale previously, or or sold for previously, and if it's up, time and time again, they'll see that as well. So yeah, I think just like a house, it can be.
Yep. All right.
So let's talk about co versus com.
Let's talk about co versus com. So the value
we got
of
online
a .co or any other top-level domain compared to a .com, which is currently the Rolls-Royce, or however you want to, the pinnacle of domain names.
This is going to be a heated debate.
So
no, I mean, I think it's educational. We did some of it last week, which is, you can't always say whether a name's good or bad, but we can do some comparison stuff. So I'm looking like at onlinedegrees.co and saying, what would I do? Onlinedegrees.co or onlinedegreesco. Or onlinedegreescompany.com. Well, make it something even better. bestonlinedegrees.com. So let's talk about bestonlinedegrees.com or onlinedegrees.co. I think Rick's right. You never brand your company onlinedegrees.co. You would be an online degree company that happened to use this as your domain name. And I'm not sure. I go back and forth. I think right now I'd probably do bestonlinedegrees.com as opposed to this one.
I think that the ratio works for nets, works, and co's. I don't think it's not going to work for brandable names and other extensions. So if you want to take, our example, Rick, of meet, meet.me, what is that name worth in a ratio to meet.com, and what is that name worth in a ratio to meet.com? I don't know. I think brandables have like a values, so they're separate and apart from their matching counterpart in .com, and arguably it could be better. It could be better with just the CCTLD and not the .com.
There are certain CCTLDs and TLDs you can put a value at. For example, when I'm evaluating a .ca domain, I give it 10% of the value of the .com, and I found that to be fairly accurate.
So in order to do that, you would need to set the value of the .com in your mind and then multiply it by 0.1 in order to figure out what the value that you're going to pay is.
Yeah, I use an equation that I use, and I get the multiple, and that's for the .com, and I divide it by 10 to give me the multiple for the .ca, and then I can decide whether that's in my selling price or my buying price. And I did it yesterday and I have it beside me here somewhere. I did it for about 20 domain names, and in most of the domain names, I'd say 19 or 18 out of the 20, it was fairly accurate. And I think you can do it with .nets. I think you can do it with .co's, and I think you can do it with a lot of other ones.
I do this very similar, and my number varies though. I don't. It depends. So here's where I start my basis. I take a sale like sex.com and sex.net, and for round numbers, it's about 25 to 1 difference from the .com to the .net on a high-profile sale. So there's my foundation. So I divide it somewhere between 25 and actually 100, which may sound a little bit high, but when I'm looking at a $1 million .com domain name, the chances are that .net is probably valued around $10,000. It's 10, it's 20, it's 25. It's usually not 100. Okay, so it's usually in the $10,000 to $100,000 range if you could get it. Because you still have to remember, assuming there's a market for that name. sex.net had a market because it was sex, but another .net wouldn't have been quite as desirable. So the 25-to-1 ratio probably would be significantly higher than 25-to-1. That's why I use that as the foundation of 25-to-1, because that's about as strong a comparison as you can get, and it's legitimate and it's real.
Paige, Mike, what do you think?
I know it's been 3 shows since I mentioned .la, but for LA we said if it's the com's $1 million and we can get it for reg fee, that's one of the things that we did. So that's a 5,000 ratio. So again, we're not saying it's a good name or a bad name. We're saying we're at least getting it at a price that's a ratio or a derivative or something like that, of that. So I think net is around 100. It is around 1% for a lot of names and org in terms of when you're buying.
Can we share some opinions on some of the other popular domains, CCTLDs and stuff, and see what we think they're worth? Because I think that would help the audience quite a bit.
Yeah, let's do that, Adam. So do you want to look at some of the domains that were listed in today's list?
Not really. I think most of us have in our head what they should be worth. I mean, you can do that if you want. It doesn't matter.
What idea did you have, Adam?
Well, I was just thinking of, like, anybody have anything similar to what I have for com versus CA, the 10% mark, because that's accurate. And something for the .co, which won't necessarily please people, but the CA is accepted by the whole Canadian country, whereas a CO is just, I don't want to say it's a typo of the com, because it's not really. People are starting to brand behind it, but it's not like Columbia is really doing really well with the .co besides selling it to domainers and other prospectors and GoDaddy.
Right.
So it'd be interesting to look at what other people would rate some of these on a percentage basis.
I think there's, I think, as far as .com and .nets go, there was, several years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, there was a year where sex.com sold, not the more recent sale, of $14 million, but the sale before that, which was like 9.5. And sex.net also sold in the same year for, I think, around $450. I think that's where, and the porn.com sold also for about 9.5, and porn.net also sold in like the 400,000 range. Again, in that same 1 year period to different, I think it was different buyers. So I think that's sort of where that 5% sort of rule came from, com to net, and that's obviously for very sort of bang on short, term. So, obviously a for-word.com that's worth, $5,000, doesn't mean that the .net's going to be worth, anything, just because it's, it's matching to a .com. But on the .co side, there are some, names that have sold for better or for worse. Some big names. Most of them, I think, have been Mike Mann sales. So I'm just trying to look that up as we're going. I see that he sold business.co for $80,000 back in 2011. So that's one sale that we could base it off of. I'm looking for a couple more as we go along.
But I don't think sex.co even got a bid in this last auction, right, at $30,000?
Yeah, I think, no, it's been for sale a bunch of times too. Luxury.co, Mike Mann sold that one for $60,000.
So I'd say right now you're talking for .co, you're talking about $30,000 versus $10 million for the number one word that some people would say is the number one word in any TLD. So you're talking about
that's 333. So that's a 333 to 1 ratio.
Right, so 0.3%.
What's luxury.com worth, do you think? News.co sold for $50,000.
But
Business.co for $80,000. So.
But wouldn't you say, Mike, since those are dated sales, when that person paid $50, there was still, say, a 10% probability that at that time co could have been the next .com. Exactly. I'm not saying it could have or would have. I'm saying when you were buying it then, you were paying a premium for the, like drilling an oil well and saying there's a 1 in 10 chance this well could be a gusher. And I think that you could get that premium then, but I don't think you can get that premium now because the odds that it is going to be the next .com, I think, have been taken off the table.
There's also 700 new extensions coming out, which there wasn't for sure in 2011 when these sales occurred. So. I mean, obviously everything's adjusting to that as well.
I think it's also important to note, Mike, on a different level, that we've all invested in a lot of these new extensions when they've come out, and we've seen them. We've probably been burnt by some. We've let them drop after a year or two. And while we have some faith, and some of us have some faith in some of the new GTLDs, we're all going to be a little bit careful because we've been through the Mobis, the Tells, the .co, the .me, the .xxx, and a whole bunch of others where we speculated and it hasn't turned fruitful. All the rumors of them being great, and we didn't have a lot of meet-me's in that speculating, and we had some pretty good names.
Yeah. And
I mean, I don't know. I mean, from the .me standpoint, I mean, we could sell Love Me and Date Me and Marry Me, every week for $100,000. We just won't sell for that. So, I mean, I think the .me's are, really still very good. I just bought one, on Snapthemes a couple of weeks ago for almost $20,000. So, I still like the .me's.
Well, I think the .me is one of the best ones because it's really personalized. I mean, Date Me and all those other things, they're pretty good. They're personalized, whereas .co, I'm not sure the company thing ever really took off. I think it was just a sale to people that couldn't get the .com or companies that just wanted defensive registrations. Some speculation, but I haven't seen much of it too fruitful.
But I think, Mike Berkens, I think you're right, is that, your names that you won't sell for 100, say they're worth 500, and the com would be 10 million. So say love.com was 10 million, and yours is, 500,000, so that's about 5%. So really, you say to yourself, if you're talking about paying, say, $10, it better be a $5,000 .com for you to buy the me. Like for us, we do a lot with geos. So for us, we're not going to buy a city of less than, say, 100,000 people. We will buy it in me if we can get it for reg fee, because we think it is a $40,000 .com that we're buying for, 30. But we wouldn't, go below that. So we do have a ratio, to use Rick's word, of each TLD where we buy, or how big it has to be for us to even look at doing it. And I think your me's, make sense. But I think it's not a fixed ratio, because like Adam in Canada, there's some names that might be worth 30 to 40% of the com up there. You know what I mean? Because of especially if it's something where 70% of the market for that name would be in Canada. And at the same point, I think it's a slanted curve down to where there may be some names that wouldn't even be worth 1% of the com because they just don't apply. And then same with yours, Mike, with .me, yours could be up at the 20% level, and there may be some me's that you wouldn't even want to pay 1% of. So I think it's not a fixed ratio, it's a slanted ratio.
Yeah, I agree.
well, let me ask you this: Marry.me, Date.me. Is MarryMe.com more valuable than Marry.me?
I would say yes.
Date.me more valuable than DateMe.com?
Well, Date.com is obviously really valuable. DateMe.com to Date Me. I don't know. You think that's? What do you think, Rick?
Well, I mean, the beauty of a natural, brandable domain name is what we're talking about here. That's what it is. It isn't two words stuck together. It's two words that belong married together. Marry.me or marryme.com. I mean, if I have I want both. Okay? I mean, if I'm building a business, I want both. But I want marryme.com first, okay? I mean, we own marry.me, but yeah, I want marryme.com first. I want dateme.com first. But I know if I have that in a .com, then I can start putting up billboards and doing commercials with date.me, and that makes me very strong because now I'm differentiating myself and distinguishing myself, and I still have the backstop of having the .com, so I'm not losing any traffic. And so any of these guys that do it, if they don't do it right, they're going to do it wrong. It's going to cost them a lot of money, and then they have two choices. Do they buy the .com for the inflated price that the owner is going to want, or do they go and fold up and go out of business?
Well, I don't think that's fair to say that those are the only two options. I don't think that Vine.co is folding up and going out of business. They're wildly successful. They don't own the Vine.com, so that they're losing traffic to another website, but they're still successful.
They're successful for now. We don't know if they're going to be successful in 5 years from now, because if someone, let me tell you something, if someone was sharp and could knock them off and take their traffic away, they could give them a hell of a problem, couldn't they?
Maybe.
I don't know. Well, my.co is more of an app than a site, I guess, correct?
Yeah.
Isn't it? So,
Hey, Rick.
that's a little different play.
Rick, I got some good news for you.
Yeah.
MarryMe.com, it doesn't resolve. It says bad request. They haven't paid or uploaded the site or something, so go after it before the video airs.
Wow.
Check it out, MarryMe.com.
So I tend to agree with you, Rick, that if I was going to invest in a Mary.me, which I think is much more brandable, it sticks out in people's minds, and a lot of people know the .me already, I would want the MarryMe.com as a fallback, as sort of the defensive play and to make sure that I can route people to the right location. But I often think when I go to conferences like yours and I have time to think strategically, am I just stuck in a paradigm? Am I what all the new TLD operators are claiming is going to be outdated thinking? Will people become familiar with top-level domains over the next 3 to 5 years, such that people know that, hey, I need to look at the extension. I need to see if it's Mary.me or Mary.xyz or Mary.uno.
I don't think it happens quite that fast, as you saw with the video with the Schilling Schwartz, and Howard went door to door to businesses down a major street in Fort Lauderdale, and the people are so far behind us. I mean, like I said, they're just trying to get their heads around .com. They're trying to get their heads around what a website is. Yeah, I have a website. It's me at whatever her email address was. And the guy says, yeah, we have a website, and but it's under construction. Or we're at Facebook. So
right.
I mean, we're not to diminish them, but we're dealing with Neanderthals. I'm not trying to diminish them.
Right.
I'm trying to explain to you, when I go talk to retailers all over the world, that they're not an anomaly. That's how they are, and the problem is, whatever is always talking about the small guy. How about the small guy? How about the small guy? Well, there's your small guy. Deal with it, okay? So that's the problem. They don't understand their own customer. Their own customer is so uneducated, it's a long way to go.
So do you think they're saying that, not purposely, but they're either saying it because they don't understand their customers, or they're saying it to try and deceive ICANN into pushing these new top-level domains because they know as a registry they can make money?
Well, they don't have to deceive ICANN. ICANN is in charge of the entire deception, for God's sake.
Well, yeah.
I mean, they're driving the train, aren't they?
So a lot of people will say, well, we came out with new area codes, and people don't have any problem adjusting to area codes. But
listen, you came out with area codes when there was a reason to come out with area codes. We didn't exactly get to the reason in life yet to do this. So
the other thing is, nobody
horses coming into one race, I just don't see it. Look, I may be 100% wrong, and this can go the way that everyone else thinks, but I just don't get it. I truly don't get it, and it isn't like I haven't spent months and months and months, and maybe longer than that, trying to get my head around it, and every time I try to get my head around it, I hit this dead end, and I hit this dead end, and then I hear people that are, look, even during the debate, Frank challenged the guy from .kiwi who thought he was going to get 25% of the registrations. I got news for you. That's a huge number, 25%.
Yeah.
I'm a numbers guy. Frank even knows that 25% it's more than optimistic. Why don't you talk about 1%? Why don't you talk about the first year getting to 0.5%? I mean, talk about getting to the first 1,000 registrations. if you look at the Schwartz Schilling thing right now, it's been out on the website now for 3 days on the top of domaining.com.
Yep.
It's only had 700 views. 700 in the entire industry have viewed that. That's a small number. Let me tell you, I told Howard when we ran it, we won't get thousands, we'll get hundreds. And everyone said, oh no, you'll get tens of thousands of people. You don't understand numbers, folks. Hundreds. It will be measured in hundreds. Yes, over time, there will be several thousand. But after a week, it'll probably be 1,100 or 1,200. This is an industry that's supposed to have 100,000. Come on, give me a break. Not true.
Yeah.
So on the Kiwi thing, I mean, just to be clear, I think what Tim from Kiwi was talking about is what share of the .co.nz New Zealand country code market did he think he was going to get? That's where 25% came from. It wasn't.
Yep. Thanks for clarifying that.
Right. Exactly. Adam, were you going to make a point also about the?
Well, I was just going to give Rick a bit of support. You said that nobody cared about the new area codes, but people were outraged when they had to switch off a 212 area code in New York.
Right.
They were outraged. People don't like change, and the only reason people started to use the new area codes is that they ran out of phone numbers, so they had to start using the new ones.
Okay, so you just hit on something. They don't like change.
Nobody likes change.
Why all of a sudden is human nature going to change to 700 different extensions? They don't like change. The guy said, I'm not going to have a website. The woman said she has an email address. The guy said he has a Facebook page. None of them are going to change. Let me tell you something. If you go interview those 3 people or 5 people in a year from now, not one of them is going to change.
Hey, guys, here's my comment. The rollout of new TLDs is going to make Obamacare look like an Apple tablet. It was pushed down from the top. They didn't test it. They disregarded all public opinion, but they're doing it anyway.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying they won't be successful. They're going to get enough registrations to all be successful as registries. But $50 million was spent by 1&1, and the level of mind share that they gained in the public would be minuscule. Now, it would be huge compared to anything else in the domain business. They could have bought, what do you think? They could have bought every registriar in the world except for their own and GoDaddy for maybe $50 million. I mean, I couldn't believe Mike Berkens when you posted that number. I couldn't believe it.
I fell off my chair.
I mean, I think that might be low, and they may have pulled back from the campaign.
Yeah.
I mean, I heard a higher number for the whole fourth quarter. Last weekend, I didn't see any commercials running on the NFL for it. I mean, I may have missed it, but I got 5 TVs. I didn't see any running any of the games.
It was a great campaign, but I've never seen anyone spend that much money without a cash register in my entire life.
Well, $50 million, and they generated how many pre-registrations? 3 million, 4 million?
Well, they had 1.5 million, I think, before, so I would say about 2 million.
So 2 million registrations?
Talked about that when they first aired, whether it was Wise or just in general.
For $25 a registration it cost them, right?
Well, but they didn't take any money in.
Right, exactly.
No, they're paying for email addresses.
Registration.
It's a marketing strategy, and they're acquiring potential customers. They've got the email addresses. I pre-registered a few on 1&1. I got 3 emails, I think, just this morning to different email addresses from different companies that I've pre-registered. So they're using those email addresses. They're starting to create a relationship with people.
Well, they got to get the $50 million back.
And I think, when we talk about change, I don't want to belabor the point because I make it a lot, but we're guys that are in our over 40-ish I guess range, certainly. And so for us, anything of these new GTLDs would be a change because we already have websites, we have an internet presence, we've had it for a very long time. So for us it would be a change. We went from the domains.com and went to the domains.blog. So that would be a change. On the other hand, there's a lot of people in the world that still aren't even online. I mean, there's billions of people that aren't online. They don't have any domain name. A lot of them, the internet's kind of new to them. And a lot of
Who cares? Who cares? They don't have any buying. Well, wait a second.
They
have no buying power. They have.
But they will.
They have very little buying power.
Okay,
There's at least 3 billion people that you have more in your. I'm telling you, when you have zero buying power, you can have 3 billion people, but it doesn't mean anything. Sorry.
Well, I think your analysis might have been biased, Rick. You went to shop owners that were over 40, and to Mike Berkens' point, we're all old and don't like to change. What if you went to high schools, and what if you went to colleges and you asked people there? They pay $100. Every single college student pays $60 to $100 a month for their cell phone. They can afford a website.
They have to have a business. First of all, they have to be qualified to have a business. So at least start with people that have a business, okay? Let's at least do that. So I only talk to people that actually have a business. So from the people that actually have a business, what you saw on Las Olas is absolutely representative to any main street in the United States of America, and I challenge anyone watching this, go down Main Street in your town and go to 5 different stores in a row, and you will find it. You will be stunned, just like many were, but it's common.
You think the results would have been any different had you had Howard walking down that street in 1995 and asking about the internet and .coms? You think you would get the same response?
Well, everyone evolves. I mean, it isn't 1995, but here it is 2013, and those answers were stunning. Everyone in the audience was stunned except me, because I get it, because I do talk to people on Main Street. Every single business I ever go in, I have a conversation about the internet and a domain name and traffic, and I watch their eyes glaze over. They're not interested in getting bigger. They're not interested. They don't want to do it, man. I wish, listen.
But domain names keep growing, so, I mean, people are registering them, right? I mean, it's 100 million .coms. So, I mean, with the glazed over, people are doing something. So if I'm a 15-year-old kid, I'm, going to be, I'm 15 years old. I don't know what I do with my life. Now I'm 20 and I decide I'm going to go to law school. Well, law school, I graduate. Okay, well, now I need a domain name. So, what do I do? I mean, 10 years from now, when I'm a lawyer, having now gone through school and looking for a domain name, am I going to go out and spend, $10,000 or $20,000 or $50,000 for .com? Maybe I will, but will I be happy spending $50?
Well, you know what? Maybe their parents should spend the $50,000 for the .com and skip the college at that point. Maybe that's a better investment, or do the college a little bit later. Maybe the $50,000 isn't so bad, because at the end of the day, look, he's going to do whatever is in his best and self-interest. Okay, that's the bottom line. And if a .com serves him, that's what he's going to use. If something else thinks he's going to serve him, he's going to use that. But he's still going to find out some pitfalls along the way, regardless, even if it's 10 and 15 years down the road.
So it's safe to say that I think Rick thinks that most of these new GTLDs are for the dogs.
I have a post, and I said some of the extensions are turning the pigeon shit into pigeon diarrhea. They're so bad.
Well, I think the other thing, Michael, to consider is a lot of people are going to waste a lot of money on pipe dreams, and that's unfortunate, because it's like buying a lottery ticket. Sometimes you get lucky and you get the right one, but we all know most people don't win the lottery.
And most people don't have access to even buy a meet.me or a date.me in all the new top-level domains, where there are going to be some exceptions to the rules where the TLD really fits with a great verb or a great noun.
But we didn't spend a lot of money for it. I was looking up. I think we spent $1,700 or something for those domains. They weren't expensive.
What? No.
Yes.
Mike Berkens, is that right? You only spent $1,700 for those domains?
That's not right, unfortunately.
Hold on.
It's you can find out what he spent, but I guess the only thing I'm against is this idea. We talk about 1995 versus now. We had a planned system by a group of technology guys, and I just don't like hearing that this is in response to some overwhelming public demand for these new TLDs. If they just want to say, we're going to let a bunch of other purveyors come in and try to be registry operators and give them a chance, then say that. But it's this idea that, oh my gosh, all we're doing is responding to some overwhelming demand that's out there, that's where I guess I just don't see it. I don't see Main Street having that overwhelming demand.
Yeah.
So Paige, are you calling ICANN pirates? Is that what you're trying to say?
Arr. They've certainly got the booty.
And then the other point, Mike, is that when you have a new one come out, you may get some defensive registrations. When you have 1,000 come out, you're not going to get 1,000 defensive registrations.
Yeah, very good point. I am not going to register all of my trademarks in all those different extensions. I'm not even going to pay for the trademark clearinghouse because it doesn't guarantee me anything. I'm not going to pay for, the donuts blocking because there's going to be, 10 times as many other top-level domains coming out. There's just too many.
I made more money buying the year after they came out than anything I bought in the gold rush or land rush. Because you wait for the next year, and everybody throws everything back willy-nilly, and then you can at least buy it for reg fee, and then you can wait for that long-term natural demand to develop, which I think is there. But it's not going to happen within 365 days for a lot of people the way they think, except for this optionality thing that you're supposed to pay for the chance that one of these registry operators is going to overtake .com, And I just don't see any of them that are paranoid enough that their TLD isn't going to work, that they're putting in a lot of effort into marketing. I see a complacency that we're just going to open up and get the registrations from the registrars. So the more that I see that complacency, the more I think they have less of a chance of success. The more one of them said, man, we don't even know if this is going to work. We don't even know if we're going to get 5,000. We're going to work our butts off to make sure we get the first, 10, 15, 20, 30,000. That would be one that I'd want to be involved with because I feel like they were helping their cause.
Paige, not to mention that some of them are still looking for financing now.
That's true.
Yeah, I think
they're not prepared. Most of them are not prepared.
I think a lot of them do have some, a good marketing budget and some good plans, but to start marketing now when they can't sell anything, we'd be beating them up like we're beating up on one-on-one. So it's not, just because they're not marketing, it's because they're not going to be out for months.
We're probably going to start seeing a lot of hybrid ways for the registries to take money in the next 6 months, and I predict that'll be the beginning of what Adam was talking about, which is a lot of speculation money thinking it's buying something when it's really not. And I think we'll start to see that here before the end of the year. Whether they call it a first-in-line pre-registration with no guarantee that you're paying a non-refundable fee for, or they sell a third level or something. I think we're going to see some ways to grab money in advance.
They'll do reservations. They'll make reservations. That's all. Make a reservation, advance reservation, and give us a deposit.
So, GoDaddy, as part of their announcement yesterday on Uno, said they would be taking paid pre-reservations in November.
Yeah.
And the float's great. I mean, I'll take money for something I may have to give you that doesn't have a cost, and then I'll give you the money back when I can take money. So.
Yeah. Lots of companies make money on the float. All right, gentlemen. It's been a fascinating discussion, an enjoyable one. We'll see you all next week. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Happy Halloween, everyone.
Happy Halloween.
Boom.